Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dutchy Gaming, and a new video around how to transition from the campaign to maps on the Zeal Lightning Strike Raider Guide. Now the reason I'm releasing this video is that I did a practice run earlier on to see how quickly I could beat the campaign, and I got really unlucky with drops, gear and currency. As my goal was just to kill Act 10 Kitava as quickly as possible, I rushed through ignoring my gear. I did notice my damage was falling off around Act 8, but I ignored it and just ploughed on. Now I did get the best time I've got, which is 4 hours 30, which for me is really quick, but I could only get 2 of the labs done, and I had to rely on doing the other one once I got to maps. However, the next 2 hours were about the worst playing experience I've had in Path of Exile. In the campaign, I neglected my gear way too much just to favour speed, and it then took me an additional 2 hours farming maps really slowly to get the build feeling comfortable to even do the third lab. My resistances were a mess, so I had to take extra points on the tree. I also had to put some really suboptimal gear on just because it had the resistances that I needed. In my rush, I also forgot to fully respec the tree properly, so I had 2 paths out of the start area, which was a waste of 5 points. So essentially it meant I was running on a level 56 tree. Lastly, I was only just res capped, and that's with Purity of Elements, so that means I wasn't able to switch to Grace, and I had no other defences, and I only had 2.5k life. Now, I don't want this to happen to you and feel your fury, so this video will guide you smoothly through how to progress from Act 10 to maps. The main tip, TLDR, don't rush. So the first tip actually happens before mapping, as I noticed that intelligence becomes a major problem when leveling. To fix this, you can take one of these 30 int nodes here, the strength one here if you need it, you can always respec them later. A heavy belt along with that took care of any strength issues I had. And then for the intelligence, I recommend running a lapis amulet. If you still struggle, you can craft 15 to 20 intelligence on an item for 1 augment. Things that can help with not needing so much strength and not leveling your cast and damage taken setup past the first couple of levels, and don't fully level your ancestral protector. Now we'll go on to what you really need your character to look like to go comfortably into maps and just run through the first sort of 5 tiers of maps fairly easily. So if you're not using Trinity, your hideout DPS with auras should be 12k or more. Just hover over your helix when you're in the hideout and it will show you what the DPS is. I also recommend leveling to around 68 before killing Kitava, especially if you're not super experienced, as it makes the transition to maps much easier. To get there, I'd recommend gearing and leveling up in either Heist or farm the new lead mechanic in Blood Aqueducts or Foothills. I'd recommend Foothills as it has good cluster jewels that can drop, you get syndicate encounters there, and the level's higher than Blood Aqueducts. I'd also now recommend completing the third lab before you start mapping and killing Kitava, as the exposure we get helps a lot with DPS. Now in the guide I say you can leave this, but when I've tried the different methods, it's 100% better to get this done before you kill Kitava. Next, get resistance capped without Purity of Elements and including the drop you're going to get from killing Kitava. If you're still a little bit short, you can use the bench to craft resistances on, and there are nodes in the tree here which help as a last resort. You also want to get all your gem links sorted out so you don't have to worry about rejigging stuff when you start mapping. And then finally, regarding life, I would say 2.6k life is the minimum you want to go into maps with, but this might feel slightly uncomfortable, so 3k is ideal. You'll find then when you start putting the next 5 or 10 points, then you get more life and it feels much more comfortable. So that's what I recommend for you to transition to maps, but what do you do when you're first in maps to get away from Spectral Helix as quick as you can, because if you're like me, it'll feel horrible. First thing you want to do is swap Purity of Elements for Grace and get Defiance Banner in. You'll be able to do this once you've got the Precision Reservation node and the Grace Reservation node. Now, it does mean you'll now be missing 30% ailment immunity. I just don't worry about that until I can actually get a shield with 30%. You could also run these unique boots that cost the chaos at league start if you can afford to lose the elemental resistances. If you find a shield early on that's got like 20%, 25%, go for that. It's going to push you up to like 90, 95%. But what you're looking for is 30% ailment immunity on a shield, but they only become available when you've got a base of item level 73. So you could just buy a base off trade for next to nothing and use Harvest to craft it, or just wait until you hit the map level and then you can just pick up bases from the ground. To hit T1 ailment immunity, use fire, lightning or cold crafts in Harvest. They seem really regular that you hit these ailment immunity. Really, the only other thing you're looking on for your shield is life or a prefix to craft life. So craft your shield, as long as it doesn't mess your resistances up, you're now ailment immune. Next step, get a better claw. if you haven't found one when you were leveling in Act 9. I've put a trade search into this description, which is what I would use to search for a claw. If they're too expensive, you just gradually lower the LE DPS stat on the claw. But what you're looking for is an Imperial or Noble claw with a minimum of 20% attack speed. If you go lower than this, it can feel pretty horrible with Helix and when you transition to Lightning Strike. If you want to craft your own, I'd recommend using attack speed essences and speed crafts in Harvest. They're the best chance of getting a decent claw. So you want one with LE damage on it. If you can find one with an open suffix, even better, because you can craft crit chance. You've then got a claw that's going to see you through a lot of the mapping experience. The next target is a 5-link, and this should be the first item that you actually purchase if you want to trade, as it means you can stop using Helix and move on to Zeal Lightning Strike. When you're close to progressing to Lightning Strike, path towards the Pierce node so that it's a comfortable transition. And then I would say wait until your Zeal Lightning Strike is at least level 15 or 16 before you start using it. Then just look to upgrade your rares with high life and resist as you go along, and look for flat damage and percentage damage on jewelry. And then after this, your next purchase will be the 6-link, and then you would just start upgrading the gear as per the guide. And then the last thing I wanted to cover off is what tier of maps should you run. Now I've put this section in as the reason a lot of people don't have a fun league start or think builds aren't particularly league start viable is they try and push map tiers too early. And I think this just comes from people leveling lots of characters. They forget what a slog the first one is each league. So my recommendation would be to farm white maps until you're mid to late 70s, then higher tier yellow maps until your late 80s, and then feel free to move up to red maps. Obviously, if you're blitzing the content, then progress through the tiers, but don't feel that you have to force yourself through map tiers because other people are doing it. You can still level up fast in low tier maps and low level delve. So if we take this T4 cemetery as an example, I just put an alchemy orb on it and ran the map. My character at the moment is level 74 and he gets over 40% experience from this one map. It's also way more efficient to farm the maps that you can clear quickly than going a few map tiers higher and slowing down with your clear. The XP penalties are not too bad in between individual tiers and maps, and if you're level 73, you'll still get full XP from tier 2 maps, so why not run them? This delve run here is a low monster level, and again, easy on a 5-link, but in 3 minutes I level up 37% of a level. The last thing is that gem levels and quality are very important for damage, especially when you're entering later maps, so again, don't force yourself to move up tiers too early. The build can still feel a little clunky on a 5-link and lower gems, but it just gets better and better and smoother. The more you level up, the more points you put into your tree, and the more gear that you get. If you follow all these steps, you should have a really smooth and comfortable league start. I'm going to be streaming the league start on Twitch. I'll leave the link in the description. So if you do need any help at all, just see if I'm streaming, pop over, ask some questions in chat, or leave comments on the YouTube videos. And as long as there's not hundreds of comments, then I'll respond the best as I can. That wraps up this video, and I hope the additional video has been some help because I had a few questions around, how to progress, what do I do, or people that had done practice runs and got stuck in certain areas. So I thought I'd just bring out a bit more of a detailed video for this section. There's going to be at least one more video to come. Actually, no, there's going to be 2 more videos to come depending on what sort of info we get from GGG. I'm going to bring a video out on how I think you should progress your passive tree that would aid this particular build. And if we get influence mobs reasonably a few hours before league start, then I might bring out another video going through what new mods I think to put on your gear, but that one may come out maybe after day 1. We'll have to wait and see. As always, thank you very much for watching, take care, and see you in the next video.